So let's get started with sentence correction class 1. We'll start with some general tips related to sentence correction. Then we'll move on to the common errors tested on the GMAT related to sentence correction. And then finally we'll look at our first sentence correction topic, and that's modifiers. So let's get to work. First, we'll look at the directions given on the GMAT. Okay. So when we look at the sentence correction questions, the directions are everything, because a lot of people focus their attention towards grammatical errors, and I know that grammatical errors are really important, yes, but when you look at the directions, the reason I have put directions on this slide is because if you look at this, you will realize that the directions say you need to eliminate awkwardness, ambiguity, redundancy and grammatical errors. Plus, if you look here, you will realize it's saying something like choose an answer. If you read from here, it will say that it's saying choose an answer that follows the norms of standard written English. Okay, of course grammar is there, it's the first thing, but then it's talking about word choice and sentence correction, and so these are also just as important, if not more important, than grammar as far as sentence correction questions go. Just keep that in mind. Moving on, when we look at sentence correction questions, just remember that we need to choose the best answer among the answer choices given. What that really means is, when you look at a sentence and you need to correct it, don't frame an answer choice in your mind and try to look for that answer choice among the answer choices given. Just look at the answer choices and find out what the errors are and how they are corrected, and so among the 5 answer choices, which is the best corrected sentence. And so the next point is, an answer may be grammatically correct but may be wrong due to awkwardness, such as sentences which are too long, or maybe sentences are constructed in a way that they appear to be somehow awkward. Then we look at the stylistic aspects of sentence correction questions. So if you use active voice, if you keep the sentences short and crisp, so that's those sentences are going to be better than sentences which are long, awkward, or which use passive voice. And so by definition, or by it's a thumb rule for sentence correction questions, that in most cases it's thumb rule, you choose a sentence which is written in active voice. You choose a sentence which is precise and concise. I mean, it's always better to go for a sentence which is short and sweet rather than a sentence which is very long. So keep those things in mind. Now we'll move on and we'll look at some general tips. When you look at general tips, like I said, look for an answer with the fewest grammatical errors. Okay. Then we move on to the second tip, which is option A is always a repeat of the original sentence. And you need, why is that there? Because you need to remember that and keep that in mind while answering questions, so that you don't waste time looking at answer choice A or going through it. Then the next, this part is really important. What this means is that we'll keep returning to this over the next few classes. That style is nothing. When we talk about it, a stylistically correct answer choice may be wrong or may get overridden by an answer choice which is stylistically also correct but which is punctuation wise also correct. And an idiomatically correct answer choice will get preference over a sentence which is correct due to punctuation, and a grammatically correct answer choice will get preference over an idiomatically correct answer choice. So this is the sequence. You just need to know it. If you don't even want to remember it, that is also fine, but just over time when you practice questions, you will just get it by heart. You will know it by heart. And the next tip is the most important tip. Use the process of elimination. Okay, what is the process of elimination? These alphabets are here for a reason. Let's just say that when you look at a sentence in a sentence correction question, you realize that B is definitely incorrect, and so you eliminate B. And after you go through the sentences, you realize that D is also incorrect. Okay, so now you have 3 answer choices left. This is called the first iteration. So this is the first iteration. Then let's just say on the next iteration you again read A, C and E, and you realize that C is also incorrect. Okay, so we eliminate this, and so this is the second iteration. And then we have 2 choices, A and E, and let's just say that here A turns out to be correct, that is the original sentence turns out to be correct. So that was the third iteration. So this is the process of elimination, just an example of it. So use it wisely and use it everywhere possible. I have seen a lot of people, very sharp, very intelligent people, make silly mistakes on the GMAT, because at that time you are under time pressure, and you are under pressure and you really don't make a lot of smart choices. Just use the process of elimination, put it on paper, put these choices just like this, like I have done. You get writing material, and so during the real test, and so just use that material, write down the choices, eliminate the choices, and get to the correct answer. Let's just say during your elimination, okay, let's just say during elimination you are confused between say A and E. So the last point says, assume that the original meaning is correct, and so keep choice A till the very end. So what that means is, keep choice A till the very end. Okay, because I mean, there are a lot of times that the GMAT plays with your head, and it wants you to believe, because it says it's sentence correction, it wants you to believe that answer choice A is incorrect. But that's the trick. Maybe there are no errors. So just keep it till the very end, and when you're really confused, I'll say this: when you're really confused on the GMAT, as far as sentence correction goes, choose A. It doesn't matter whether it's correct or incorrect. If you're really confused, if you cannot understand the answer itself, go for A. Okay. So now let's look at the approach. And why is the approach important? The approach is important because really it's how you approach the answer choices that differentiates the high scorer from someone who just gets a 600, let's say, or 500 or something. The approach matters. So this is the approach towards any sentence correction question. First, you get an original sentence. So just skim through that sentence and realize that, okay, this is the sentence. Don't look for mistakes just then, right there and then. What do? You look at the 5 answer choices and try to find out where those sentences differ. By differ, I mean like there would be like at least 1 or 2 spots within those answer choices where there would be differences. Let's say right here it's written wherever the sentences differ, comma, something something something, and this is the first answer choice, this is choice A. And then we look at some other answer choice which says wherever the sentence differs, something something something. So it has an extra S here, and the S in sentence has been removed. So that, when we look at that, we realize, okay, fine. So let's say that two answer choices, A and D, say wherever the sentences differ, and C, D and E say that wherever the sentence differs. So when we look at that, we realize that, okay, it's talking about plurality, and it also talks about, like, it's logical that only two things, let's just say two things will differ, right? If two things will differ, okay, then sentence will not differ, sentences will differ, let's say, and sentence differs from something, but that something is not written anyplace else, so that sentence will be incorrect. And so this is just a really bad example of it, but wherever the sentences differ, so we choose this, and we get this sort of a split. It's called a 2 by 3 split, when two answer choices point in one direction and the other three answer choices point in the other direction. This is really useful, primarily because you can eliminate two answer choices, or you can eliminate even three answer choices if you're really lucky, and then have two left or three left, as the case may be, from which to choose. So when we use, let's get back to work. We skim through the original sentence, we look at the 5 answer choices and see where they differ. Let's say they differ here. Wherever the sentences differ, check what grammatical element is being tested at those locations. Plurality or something is being tested, whatever it is being tested. That grammatical element, we realize that, okay, that is being tested. If that is not being tested, we look at what else it could be tested, like words construction is being tested, style is being tested, what is really being tested. Once we know what is being tested, then we use the process of elimination, like I explained in the last slide, to remove answer choices which are incorrect till the correct answer is found. But as you will find out with experience, or if you've already taken the GMAT, you'll realize there are a lot of answer choices. There are a lot of questions where you get confused between two answer choices. So what do? Well, you take the best guess and move on. And like I said, remember, do not forget that always, keep choice A till the very end. Okay, do not forget this. This is like the best thing that you can do on a sentence correction question, is keep the A till the very end. And if you're confused, well, try to remove your confusion, eliminate your confusion. But even then, if you cannot reach an answer, well, choose the best. Take the best guess and move on. Okay. Now let's move on ourselves. These are the common SC errors that we are going to look at. Okay. So modifier misplacement. This is the first thing that we are going to look at. Then we will move on to parallelism and comparison, which is another easy topic. Then we are going to look at subject-verb agreement. That's where the real grammar starts, I guess. Then we are going to look at verb tense agreement. Then we are going to look at pronoun references, and finally we are going to look at idiomatic errors. And so these are the common sentence correction errors we'll talk about. So let's start with modifiers. Okay, so when we talk about modifiers, we are really talking about some short phrases which act like adjectives, and the removal of which doesn't really affect the meaning of the sentence. it doesn't really affect the meaning of the sentence means that the sentence makes sense even after the removal of the modifier. It keeps its original meaning. So when we look at this sentence, let's say we read the whole sentence. Ram, who had always treated his mother with respect, Ram, who had always treated his mother with respect, obeyed his father and loved him dearly. So who are we talking about? Who are we talking about? Ram. Whom did he obey? His father. And what did he do? Obey. So really what we are really talking about is the subject is Ram. Who is the subject? Ram is the subject. Whom is he talking about? Father. His father. And what did he do? He obeyed. So we are really talking about Ram. Ram obeyed his father and loved him dearly. We don't need to include this sentence. Even if we remove this sentence, it doesn't really affect the crux of the sentence. So even if we remove this part, it doesn't really affect the crux of the sentence, and that's why it's a modifier. It modifies the sentence. So generally if you see who, whom and which, just understand that a modifier may follow. Okay, just note it down someplace, because this is something I am going to tell right now only, and I may not tell this again for a very, very long time, as we run into some other similar question, similar sentence. Okay, then we look at the types of modifiers. Just know these modifiers. You don't really have to cram it. It's just because it has to be there. The first type of modifier is the introductory modifier, and the second type is appositive. When you look at the introductory modifier, this is an introductory modifier. By rule, if I say I have never seen anyone beat the champion, it's a complete sentence by itself. It does not need this part. So this is obviously the modifier. Such a modifier is called an introductory modifier because it's at the very beginning. And the appositive modifier can be any place, so in between. So let's say Honolulu, which is something, has very interesting traditions and rich history, and that wasn't an audio recording mistake. I really did that because this sentence really says Honolulu has very interesting traditions and a rich history. And the thing after the comma, this part between the two commas, really doesn't matter. Okay, so it's an appositive modifier. You don't really need to remember this stuff. You just need to know that okay, it exists. Same way, you don't really need to know this also. Once you start practicing, you'll know. But still, you should have an idea where the enemy can attack you, from which parts, right? So just know the elements. Just know that the element closest to the modifier is the one being modified. When I talk about element, I'm talking about the subject or the noun or the verb, whatever. So when you look at a modifier, such a form where modifier comes first and the IC, which means the independent clause, like the first example that we just saw, introductory modifier. So those sorts of modifiers, what they really do is they modify the subject, and let me rephrase this, they modify the closest subject. Okay, when you look at this, it's the reverse of this. This modifier modifies the subject or the verb, whichever, subject or the verb, and the subject which is the closest or the verb which is the closest. Okay, when you look at this, the same thing, modifier modifies the nearest noun. Okay, and this fourth one you really need to know, because this is the biggest enemy as far as modifiers are concerned. This is the toughest kind of question that you can get on modifiers. It's an M without commas. That means a modifier without commas. It modifies the nearest noun, and it may confuse you sometimes which is the nearest noun, and that's the beauty of it. These are the forms of modifiers. Okay, so now we are really moving into the deep ends of modifiers. Scope modifiers. Let's bring this into center. Okay. When we talk about scope modifiers, we're really talking about those sentence correction questions which use mathematical data of some sort. Okay, when there is some sort of mathematical data used, it's used in the verbal section to confuse you. Just remember, whenever there are any statistics or numerals used in the verbal section, be very, very careful, because they are there to confuse you, they are there to make sure that you make a mistake. Okay, so when you look at this, just remember all of these. Obviously, all means 100% of something. Okay, countable. All means 100% of something, countable or uncountable, right? Most means majority of it, right? 51 to 99%. And few means 1 to 15%. Just remember these values. And none obviously means 0%. When we talk about some, it could be anything. I mean, I just had some rice. Okay. I mean, did you count the rice? No. Were they 100? Were they 1000? It's anything. But when we say anything, it's not all. Just remember that. And then we talk about a few. A few are always, a few means always a little more than few. So always a little more than 15%. But how much? We don't really know. And, okay, although this is somewhat unrelated, but let's just do this. Okay. Few and less. Okay. Just know the difference between few and less. Okay. I have fewer hair on my head. Okay. I have less hair on my head. Okay. So I can assure you I don't have a balding problem, but just for this to know that few is something that is countable. Okay. Let's say somebody had like 5 hair on his head, so he can count that. It's fewer hair. Let's say you cannot count it, and it's this. Let me give you a better example of this. But just remember that few and less are different. Okay. So let me give you another good example. And this was just in good spirit, but no offense to anybody who has like lesser hair than me. But, so few. I have fewer coins with me now. Okay. I have less money with me now. So the thing is, here we are talking about coins. And can you count coins? Yes, you can count coins. Because I just made this, gave this example because as far as hair are concerned, they are like, you can either count them or not count them depending on how many hair you have on your head. So but when you look at few and less, you can say that I have fewer coins with me now. So you can count the number of coins. If I say I have less money, you can like count money, you can either count coins or you can count notes, but you cannot count money as such. So few is all about countable stuff, and that's why it's there in this list also, 1 to 15%, and less is uncountable or non-countable, whatever it is. Okay, just note it down someplace, just remember this, because this is something that may not come up again. Okay, then so these are the scope modifiers. You have to know them. By knowing them, I don't mean you need to like cram, you just need to know them. Okay, so then we look at adverbs. Do you know when you talk about adjectives modify nouns, adjectives modify nouns. Okay, fine. What do adverbs do? Adverbs can modify adjectives, they can modify verbs, and they can modify other adverbs. They can modify everything other than nouns, right? Or pronouns for that matter. They can modify everything other than nouns or pronouns. Adverbs can modify adjectives, verbs, and other adverbs. So what are like adverbs? How would I know what an adverb is? An adverb modifier is something that answers how. Okay, so let's say somebody is dressed really well. Okay, so when we say he is impeccably dressed, you can identify this easily. Okay, you can identify this easily by the use of ly. So when we look at this sentence, an adverb is something that uses ly. So when we look at this sentence, we look at he is impeccably dressed. So as you can see, dressed, who is dressed? Somebody is dressed. I'm also dressed right now. Anyways, he is impeccably dressed. So when you look at dressed, it's an adjective. And what is modifying it? Impeccably. That's an adverb. Okay. Then we move on to some other stuff. An adverbial modifier doesn't need to be right next to the word being modified. Okay. So just remember that although when we look at a modifier, we always say, okay, the nearest noun, the nearest subject, the nearest verb or something. But an adverbial modifier doesn't really need to be like right next to the sentence. Okay. And then the last point is adjective can't modify another adjective. That's just what I told you, right? So as far as I am concerned, when you adverbify a sentence, when you use an adverb to modify a sentence, you really can answer how, and you can easily guess. So whenever you see something that is using ly, just know that it is modifying something, and it's always going to modify something. And when it modifies something, always remember that it doesn't need to be right next to the word being modified. And this is an important, very very important concept, because otherwise it wouldn't have a separate slide here. So just remember this concept. Okay. Then finally we come to the end of modifiers. There are some other tips. The first one is only. If you look at only should be used just before the word or words it's meant to modify. Only should be used just before the word or words it's meant to modify. Okay. So what we really mean is, if you look at this sentence that I'm going to put up here, look at this sentence. Only I know what to do. Okay. Okay, fine. This is fine. So this is a sentence. Only I know what is this modifying I. Okay. How does it modify? Well, if I say I know what to do, that's a complete sentence. But if I say only I know what to do, it changes the meaning of sentence, but it's still the same sentence, right? So let me give you another example of it. Something that I have noted down from some place. I'm looking at my notes. Just so you know, I have very thorough notes, and that is a very good thing. If you don't have good notes, you won't really make it. So okay, right. Okay, found one. Good one. Okay. Okay. Out of the two ducks, because they only know what to do. Okay. I hope you can see this clearly. In any case, what it says is, out of the two ducks, Dave only knew what to do. Okay, so what are we really talking about? Are we talking about Dave, or are we talking about knew what to do? We are talking about Dave, right? So this needs to disappear. And this needs to go here. Okay. When we say right next to it, we mean right before it, just before, right? So this is an example. I have to go through my notes for this. Out of the two ducks, only Dave knew what to do. Okay. I don't know why would you name ducks. In any case, the second thing is, of is a modifier, and if you didn't know that, well, now you know. Of is a modifier. Eliminate the phrase after of to determine the plurality of the subject, because usually it's combined with that, and what it will do is it will somehow like create ambiguity of some sort, or it will confuse you in some way, and you'll go for the wrong answer choice, and that's not what you want to do. So just remember that whenever you see of, be very careful. Okay. And now when we look at the GMAT and the psychology of it, this is the last point today. And so the GMAT will try to confuse you by not using commas. Just find out what it is that the sentence is talking about, and the modifiers will reveal themselves. Okay. So this is for the last kind of modifier, right? And the one without the commas, GMAT does this a lot. Either it uses very long sentences, and you really don't know what the sentence is really talking about, because there are like 5 commas in the middle of those sentences. But if you really focus, you will be able to find the crux of the sentence. Once you know the crux of the sentence, how do you know the crux of the sentence? I'll give you a simple tip. Find out the subject, find out the verb, find out the object. So what is the subject? Subject is something who, if you ask the question, who are we talking about? So that's the subject. What does the subject do? Subject does something, right? That's the verb. And what is the state of the subject? And that's the verb. And the object is whom does the subject do this work on, right? So the object, that is the object. Okay, so this is one of the things. Let me give you one example of this also, the of thing. Of all the people I know, John is the only one with the beard. Okay, so here one is this sentence. I'm trying to make it visible. Okay, so this sentence, right? Let's use this. All the people I know, John is the only one with the beard. This sentence, in this sentence we have used of, but if I just say John is the only one with the beard, okay, does that make sense? Maybe it doesn't, maybe it does. Okay, what if I reconstruct it, right? So of all the people I know, John is the only one with the beard, and the second sentence is John is the only one I know with the beard. Okay, so the first one is using of. What are we talking about? Of all the people I know, John is the only one with the beard. Okay, the real thing that we are talking about is John is the only one with the beard. Here, this is important. John is the only one with the beard. Okay, and here this is important. John is the only one with the beard. Okay, so are you really saying, what are we really saying is that this and that, after off, this stuff doesn't really matter. Talking about John, John is the only one with the beard, John is the only one with the beard. Okay, that is the meaning of sentence. Okay. That is done, and those are some of the examples. Another thing about of that I would like to say is that whenever we talk about of is always a good friend to all of the sentences which use like some, all, any, none and most. So that's just a tip. And now we've come to the end of modification. So let's just look back at where we started from. What did we do? Okay. So much we covered. And so as far as modifiers are concerned, modifiers are done. Okay. So right, this is done, this is done, this is done, and since all of them are done, yes, that's all folks. It's all folks. Okay, and we'll meet next time and we'll